Hello, everybody. This is Marty from Dawgs blog and the Noontime Report of the Frank Carson et al. Trial on Wednesday, February 20th, 2019. Court schedule started at 9:30. Judge actually got on the bench around 9:50, and the attorneys were in chambers prior to that. And in the middle of it, Jared Jordan, Praveen Singh's attorney, was called into that meeting also. When Judge Aniga came back out, or got on the bench, she noted that Percy Martinez wanted to use information to a title company in regards to some of the documents and houses that they were talking about that are involved or possibly involved in his federal case. There was two properties in particular. Oakwise Lane, and I forget another one off the top of my head right now. And she said that Percy Martinez maintained that he used his representation, Praveen Singh used his representation as a police officer for 12 years in some of those documents and some of his statements. Percy Martinez argued that he had asked about being a police officer and saying that he was a police officer under oath, and was the first question he asked him when he started to redirect. And there was other questions that he had asked about making those same type of claims to many other people, including his family and his friends. He had lied under oath, saying that he had been with Modesto Police Department for 12 years. He also lied that he was at 1800 Tully Road in Modesto at one time, apparently in uniform, pretending he was a Modesto police officer. And it sounded like they were talking about an eviction, but they didn't specifically say that. Attorney Hans argued that Percy Martinez had asked him questions about the last 10 years and being under oath, and it goes to this direct impeachment of anything that he had signed under the penalty of perjury or testified to in court. Jai Goel argued this information is allowed under the evidence code, and it goes to the veracity and weight for the jury to determine. Praveen Singh's federal case is in regard to some financial transactions, real estate deals, or something along that line. The statute of limitations of any perjury penalty is run, so he's in no danger. Judge Aniga was not seen where the question was asked after Hans had alluded to and read the testimony, the transcript of the testimony. When Percy Martinez asked him if he'd lied under oath in the last 10 years, the judge said she's not seeing that. But then she was reading again the wrong transcript as it was said yesterday, not previously. Marlissa Ferrer argued this information is by Stewart Title Company on a listed address, and is just some of the discovery that they received and they had turned over as they were required to, but not sure about any relevance of it. She said the defense is not allowed to go into his federal case. She also said that they're asking the witness questions that are outside the direct examination, outside the scope. She also says that there's looking at another issue, looking at the document itself, they have a foundation issue as it's not actually been submitted, nor is it part of the federal case. It was just a draft. No, it was not in his handwriting except for his signature at the bottom. Marlissa Ferrer said that Praveen Singh has no convictions on this matter. There is no foundation, and it's all hearsay. There's no basis for these questions based on that document. Judge Aniga then decided to print out the entire testimony that he had testified to the other day and yesterday, especially yesterday, and asking and to read exactly what was said when those questions were asked by Percy Martinez. And also when he was asked if he had lied to his family and friends, that he had possession of uniforms which included a flak vest. Percy Martinez argued that he had lied under oath 10 years ago. Well, he had lied under an oath when he said no, that he did not lie under oath 10 years ago. And he said this was an investigation by Stanislaus County District Attorney Investigator Glenn Gully that it had done. And there were police reports that say in them that a search warrant was done in March of 2014, apparently on businesses owned by PRAVEEN Singh. He said PRAVEEN Singh should not benefit by perjuring himself then or now. He said he signed the document under penalty of perjury. Also noted the occupation of his law enforcement of 12 years with Modesto Police Department was also a lie. He put several addresses on the different documents. He said that the DA is trying to hide the truth from the jury. The DA is trying to keep PRAVEEN Singh in an aura of reliability, which he obviously is not. He says there are enough here to have him confirm or deny whether he said or did these things. He said it's up to the jury to decide what weight to give to PRAVEEN Singh and the evidence. Marlissa Ferreira said the issue is foundation. The document they're looking at is a draft, not an official document. It was a state search warrant. Glenn Gully is also a double badger, as he is a federal marshal, and this was his federal investigation. This document came from the realty company, and it was never submitted. It never made it to the title company. So it's not a crime to have an unsubmitted document in your business. PRAVEEN Singh had already been impeached as saying yes to saying he was a law enforcement officer. This is info on the federal case, and it's not allowed. She says it's not relevant to the case at hand. Again, Percy Martinez said his foundation is found in PRAVEEN Singh's possession. That is the foundation, and he should not benefit from telling lies to everybody around him, including law enforcement. Percy Martinez will ask him if he's under oath and had done law enforcement employment or worked when he said he had worked for law enforcement and he was under oath and he had not told the truth. Judge Aniga said Percy Martinez may be conflating two separate issues here, and she loved using that term, conflating, in the lies about as the police officer and then under oath. Percy Martinez says there is no proof of the exact charges to the federal court, so there's no way to tell if they're treading in that case or not. Marlissa Ferry said it's clearly one property on the federal document, and PRAVEEN Singh has already taken the fifth. Percy Martinez says there are federal documents in this case. The entire document, there are 24 other documents. There was one address at 2221 Wise Oak that is not on the document of the federal charges. He says there's also, that house was also close to 2208 Giant Oak, and Marlissa Ferrer saying it is close to the other. That doesn't mean they're related. 2221 Wise Oak, not in the indictment of the federal charges in the case. Marlissa Ferrer says the indictment, statements in the indictment to the banks and the statements to the title companies and so on is conduit to all the properties. Doesn't necessarily mean they're all listed. The document could be included in the charges. Marlissa Ferrer said the Wise Oak property is not listed but could be later on used in that federal case. PRAVEEN Singh has taken the Fifth Amendment on all those properties in that case. Percy Martinez says Marlissa Ferrer has no insight, or she knows something that she's not sharing to know what the U.S. Attorney is going to use or not use in that federal case. The property were listed in that case. Judge Anita noted that the trial judge shows the jury only the relevant evidence for a case. The Fed case is not an issue at all to her. Marlissa Ferrer keeps saying out of scope, but it's the questions lead to the credibility of the witness, and then, so that makes it fair game. She did say the foundation issue is a problem. PRAVEEN Singh admitted that he has represented himself as a law enforcement officer many times in the last few years. The documented issue is just a draft. It's not a certified and final issue. It's not served or stamped. There's no proof of his possession. It's already impeached for lying under oath. Prosecution objection is sustained. The jury came up at 11:15, so we wasted a good hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes without a jury. And PRAVEEN Singh gets on the stand, and we have the Percy Martinez doing continuing cross-examination on PRAVEEN Singh. He asked him about the Steve Jacobson interview in 5/6/18. Talked how he had given information about Frank Carson. Said he took. He was asked if he said he took the bag that Frank Carson had put the evidence in. He said no. He said Frank Carson had it. That was a bag that was kept at Frank Carson's office. It was his bag, but he kept it at the office, and Frank had met with him in an anonymous place and then handed him that bag. The bag had on the outside his business card of a couple businesses. On the inside, it apparently had Frank Carson's business cards in it. He said he saw Frank Carson place the items in the bag. Then the bag was handed to him. On June 17th of 2018, he talked to Steve Jacobson again and said that Frank Carson handed him a bag that PRAVEEN Singh had kept there at the Frank Carson office. Again, that's the bag that he said kept at Frank Carson's offices. That was the bag that Frank put the evidence in, and he's saying that he gave it to him to keep secure. Again, he said there was sketches. He first said he didn't look at the evidence, but then he's saying there's sketches of markings of items on the Frank Carson property, so location of certain areas and items and what. He wasn't really sure what they were, what they meant. Frank Carson had written orders on the side that said call when it is done. He was also asked about if there was people that looked like Indian descent. He said it didn't. He also said the sketch was stick figures. The people were just stick figures. It wasn't actual drawings. But he did testify they looked like the defendants in the court here today. He had talked to Steve Jacobson and Kurt Bunch about booby traps that Frank Carson had talked about on the property. He's told Jacobson that he was unknown booby traps for sure. He didn't know that as a fact. He had told Kurt Bunch that Frank Carson said, "It's done." Kurt Bunch said, "We believe he told you that meaning it's done, and the booby traps had taken care of it." He was asked again about some of those statements. He was reading the transcript to refresh. He didn't really recall still after reading it some of the statements that he made to Jacobson. He said he did own a Modesto Police Department uniform, has dressed as in uniform as a Modesto police officer in the past. Percy Martinez had a picture that he had marked as evidence, and he showed it to Praveen Singh, and he says, yes, it's him in uniform, in a Modesto Police Department uniform. And he said, was he representing himself to be a law enforcement officer in that picture? He did not recall. He was asked if he represented himself to be a law enforcement officer when he was at any time for Royal Realty. He didn't recall. He said no. He didn't say don't recall. He said no to that one. He never was asked or attempted to arrange security on the Frank Carson property. He said no, he didn't do that. Just for information, there was a lot of rumors flying around about that at one time by some ignorant people, and saying that Praveen Singh was trying to arrange security on Frank Carson's property, and they found all kinds of illicit drugs and all kinds of stuff while they were doing a walkthrough of that property to arrange security. Now that, by his own mouth, if you want to believe him, it's not true. He was asked if Frank Carson was ever out there with a shotgun. He said, on the property with a shotgun. He said yes. He had, on the 9/13/18 interview, he had told Kurt Bunch that he believed he was out there with a shotgun. He said yes, he knew he was out there with a shotgun. Then he said, well, he told Kurt Bunch he believed he was out there with a shotgun. This led to an objection and a sidebar. So when they came back from the sidebar, he again was asked by Percy. The investigators asked, Kurt Bunch asked, in your 9/13/18 interview, Frank Carson was in back with a shotgun, and he read the transcript to refresh. Led to another sidebar. Something happened there with Jared Jordan. Praveen Singh was then taken outside with Jared Jordan to have a consultation. And when they came back in, Percy started talking about him telling Kurt Bunch that Frank Carson was out back with a shotgun. Praveen Singh said they believe he is heading out to the back with the shotgun, patrolling the yard. Kurt Bunch said they know that he was in the back hiding with a gun. He said yes. That's what he responded to Kurt Bunch. Kurt Bunch said, with a shotgun. He said yes. Kurt Bunch also said he's not giving all the information on Frank Carson. Praveen Singh said that I have given up my own brother on information like this. Why wouldn't I give up Frank Carson? And Praveen Singh said, yes, that's what I said to Kurt Bunch. He was asked if he knows a Christina Castro. Objection, sidebar. Praveen Singh and his attorney again. After Jared Jordan, his attorney, went to the sidebar briefly, and then put Praveen Singh outside to consult again. This is at this point the judge decided to break for lunch. It was just before noon, and we're coming back at 1:30. They got to clear up some more information on this worthless witness, and the jury's coming back at 2. So we'll be back with the Praveen Singh show he'll be back on the stand around 2 or so, but the attorneys are coming back at 1:30 this afternoon. Don't forget the podcast tonight.